Welcome, everybody, to This Week in Hospitality Marketing Live Show number 315. There we go. It changed over. I was making sure we had the right display. It's like, wait a minute, we're not sharing a board. With me, ladies first, Adele Gutman, AdeleGutman.com, Tammie Carlisle with the prestigious and exclusive Milestone Internet. Yes, you have to be invited into the Milestone Internet Club. It's like the 5-timer jacket in Saturday Night Live. You get a quilted smoking jacket, big old 5 on the shoulder. It's an
Reach out to me. I'll invite anybody.
And Mr. Dean Schmit with Basecamp Meta Search Marketing, Life in General, nice go-to guy. So yeah,
8560.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I was dogging on Dean. I got to be fair. I was asking where his happy floral Hawaiian-esque tropical shirts were. You know what his answer was? Dean, what was your answer?
Well, I've gone through the cycle. I'd have to go into reruns and start doing ones that I wore before. And Lauren told me I needed to get some new Hawaiian shirts. So there's going to be a Venmo account set up. You know, I think go fund my Hawaiian shirt collection. Go fund me or something. Start sending me. I should have grabbed someone while I was in Mexico.
Right. That was my thing. It's like you were just there. There had to be a ton of choices for you to pick up shirts.
Yeah, but you just. And not that I didn't look like a tourist as it was, but you really look like the tourist when you're the guy that's in Mexico buying a Hawaiian shirt. It's just like a stamp.
Oh, come on. I revel in my touristness. It's like, yeah, I'm the geeky dude that does not fit in. And what are you selling me that I can buy at 3 times the cost I normally would have to pay? Tell me.
Enough that I was sporting the fanny pack.
Ooh, now you're hitting my style options. Do I want the dark fanny pack or the big fanny pack?
Yeah.
I went to Hawaii with a colleague for a work conference, and the first thing we did is we went into Costco so he could buy Hawaiian shirts to fit in.
See, live the tourism, revel in the tourism, be the tourist. Yes, that's definitely it. But yeah, so I will be contributing to your GoFundMe of getting Dean better tropical shirt. Actually, you know what? You should talk to our local newscasters because I swear I see the same outfit for at least a few days in a row. So yeah, I think you're holding stuff to a higher standard than most people do on the whole I'm on camera thing. So, so I did ask and offer. I did kind of put a statement up because it just being in Florida, the hold my beer state. It's actually getting to where it's hard to watch news. But keeping it into the conversation of hospitality, it is beginning to have its effect on our business, our industry, as to how it's people's interest in travel, their willingness to travel. I say this firsthand. I have interesting stories to tell. Tim Welsh, who works with me, went on his honeymoon. He got married last month, and they were going to go to Aruba. I can never say the island. It's a small little island in the Caribbean. And I'll say it later, right? Anyway, they get down there, and his fiance gets COVID.
Oh no!
First day.
Oh no!
So they went through all the protocol, testing, confirmation before departure, all that stuff. And it's a small little 40-room boutique place. First day, gets sick. Now, fortunately, being vaccinated, she didn't get drastically ill. It wasn't a hospital thing. But of course, honeymoon, sick. Immediately, they had to be separated, put into separate rooms, quarantine, so forth and so on. And then the process of what does the hotel do? How do they handle it? What are they getting charged for? Or how do they feed them? The fact of it is that these are considerations of travel now.
Wow.
And actually, there's a lot of other things to this, but just that reality of it. Now, we don't have that necessarily domestically for travel. If I travel to Georgia, get sick, or have gotten sick, and I don't have to go to the hospital, pretty much it's a pack up and come home, and I suffer the drive home if that's the worst case scenario for that. And all fingers crossed, nobody gets sick enough to have to go to any hospital because there's just no room right now anyway, at least in Florida. So, how do we deal with this as a hotel? How do we deal with this as a resort? How do we deal with this as an industry in the sense of travel cost? I mean, another friend of mine was talking about traveling, and then they realized that where they were traveling to, which was Canada, there was an immediate $1,000 plus for their family of 4 to make it there. because of the testing requirements. And it's not just the fact that they have to coordinate their testing on departure and getting there. It's coordinating the testing to come home. And that's the unknown area. It's like where and how, where do you find it? How do you do it? And I'm not trying to put, a damper on the conversation today, but travel for us now is a different thing. And it's more than just room and rate and availability and what are we offering when you're at the hotel. And even when we expand that conversation to what are we doing for safety and security and health, it's even being expanded past that is what is all the prelude and considerations necessary for your travel experience. I mean, Tim, firsthand, you had to deal with just the fact of traveling and going through what you had to deal with. I mean, anyway, I just thought I'd lay that premise. It is a consideration we have to put into our travel discussions of marketing. Like, how do we market what we're doing? How do we convey this stuff, Anyway.
Having just come back from a wonderful resort in Mexico we talked about last week.
That you didn't buy shirts at, but just
yeah, that didn't buy shirts at. But we talked about, I had to do the COVID test to get back into the United States, and I asked the guy, I says, by the way, so what happens if I don't pass this? And the answer was that I would be quarantined to my room for 2 weeks. Now, all things being equal, being quarantined in this lovely beachside, oceanfront, beautiful room. I can't even just describe it to do justice, but was not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But if we think about that for just a minute, they're pretty much betting on you passing it because keeping you in that room for 2 weeks is not in my best interest. It's not in their best interest. It doesn't really work well for everybody. It's just something that you have to do. But so let's say that just 0.01 of 1% of their guests don't pass that. That means that sooner or later, somebody's going to have to do that, right? What kind of a mess does that make for the hotel if they get into that situation?
Especially if they're sold out or if they're getting $500 a night and people are going to be unwilling to pay $7,000.
Or can they pay?
Well, people,
Oh, there's no way I could have paid for that room.
Yeah. I wonder. I wish I knew the answer to this, but I'm sure that travel insurance is a whole new game now.
Good point.
To get unconditional travel insurance, and Tim is the one that told me this, was almost twice the cost of the tickets to fly. Because,
and I'm sure it must be different for people who are vaccinated and unvaccinated.
He didn't say that, and I don't know firsthand, but I do know that when he looked at because he looked at travel insurance for just the causations of delay, typical stuff, bad weather, because, hurricanes were rolling through Caribbean and so forth, and not that the island he was on was affected, but if that were to happen, how does that happen? So he was looking at variations of travel insurance, and back in the day, it used to be a blanket coverage. Hey, if you get delayed for anything, the insurance kicked in. Well, they fragmented the heck out of that, according to what Tim was telling me. It's conditional, it's specific, and it's also priced. And to get the no matter what happens coverage, we used to be just like, oh, insurance, and we always thought we were being lavish by actually buying insurance, is massively expensive. And I'm sure, given the condition of his travel, that might be certainly particular to his particular travel. It could be different for other places, obviously. But for him, he said it was almost twice the price of tickets he was paying.
But even if we keep it domestic, and I made this example a year ago this time we talked about this. Imagine a scenario, because we're imagining the same scenarios we had a year ago, let's face it. But let's say somebody flies from Portland, Oregon to Orlando, Florida. And when he got on the plane in Portland, everything was good. His temperature was down. Everything was good. And he got down to Orlando, and somewhere along the way, he catches COVID. Or I shouldn't even say catches COVID. Now he is actively has symptoms of COVID is really the better description of that. He probably had it before he got on the plane, and that's a whole nother issue. But now you're in Orlando with COVID. You can't get on the plane to get back home again, and you're stuck there. What do you do?
There's a lot, and going back to some of the earlier points, Adele, that you made, is that what if the hotel's full? And what we're asking our teams to make is decisions that break down according to the infrastructure you have. And in this particular case, their revenue management wasn't being handled locally. Okay. So somebody not there was deciding what they were going to do to figure out the finances. The hotel did what they were understanding to do by separating the fact that his fiance was with COVID. He wasn't. They isolated the two of them. Now there's 2 rooms being used. And now there's, fortunately they weren't at a full capacity, but if they were, to your point, what happens? Second to what you said, Tammie, is like, what happens if I can't financially afford it? Back in the day, man, I'm just going back to as if I'm an old little, I actually am. My birthday's next month. I'm going to be old. We used to have walk rates, do you have those things set up and so forth? What it's really created for me is I'm actually putting together a package of a crash kit now, where this information, as a traveler, we need to understand the ramifications of, to your point, Dean, if I didn't pass the test, what happens? And I need to know what that is, because that is an unpleasant surprise. Unpleasant as to what I have to get charged given certain conditions. And in all honesty, there's a legality to this too, of saying we provided this information on our website. Hey, this is what happens if we're at this occupancy and we take this ADR and we do this compensation. It's almost turning into a, not a disclaimer list, but a informational value of that kind of thing. So I'm literally putting together something we're going to be offering in the sense of doing this. It's like, look, a lot of hotels don't know how to create this gathering of information stuff. And right now, domestically, it's not truly the issue. Other than if you're too sick to travel and you have to stay at the hotel you're in, then how do you negotiate that? And you don't want your front desk person to just randomize it, because that creates exception. A nice intending front desk agent offers a sweet deal to somebody, and then it happens again to somebody else, and that isn't the same deal that was given to them, and it gets discovered. The old flying on a plane and finding out you're paying 3 times more than the person sitting next to you, and now they have
commercial.
Yeah, right. And so, there has to be some standardization, some policy, some SOPs that are related to, this is how we do this, this is, and I think it needs to be put in front of the guest traveling as a helpful guide, so that you're not trying to scare them. You want them to be with you, but you also want to be very pragmatic and making sure that you're conveying what happens if, because there is an if. I mean, Dean, like you said, you could have been in Mexico, and to Tim telling me this, it ain't no fun glaring through the window, looking at the beach you can't go to, or to go to the restaurant you can't go to. You're in your room. Yeah. And, we hear, I have friends from the clubhouse who were telling me that they had to go to Canada for reasons of family and so forth. The hotel filled the minimum requirement of what the government was saying they needed to offer to be a quarantine hotel. But meal period of 2 slices of white bread and a slice of cheese is not a dinner for $50, but that's what they could do, because the staff couldn't come into work. The delivery people couldn't bring food. But to qualify to be a quarantine hotel, they had to provide meal service. That was a meal service, a loaf of bread and some pack of cheese. And that satisfied it. But it was a $40 a meal cost that was thrown into the whole cost of having to be quarantined for that period of time. And I know these are horror stories. I'm not trying to put a negative spin on what we're doing, but we have to have a better infrastructure policy as to how we do these things, and how do we handle the fact that this is now a dimension of people's travel considerations, I think.
Lauren, I'm going to... go ahead, Dean.
Okay.
Well, I was... Go ahead.
Tammie, would you please?
Okay. I'm going to spin it for a minute from operationally to marketing, right? Because that's kind of what we're talking about here. So let's take it from the negatives of some of the things that have happened in the past or recently to the positives. How do you, once you have an idea of what you're going to do, how do you market that so that I, as a consumer who may not want to go to a Caribbean island out of fear of what's going to happen if fully vaccinated, I get a breakthrough case, right? With the Delta variant. Because again, in my mind, it's like you said, okay, $7,000 to be quarantined for 2 weeks. No, right? So
I was just counting if it was 1 room, but if it was 2,
right? Yeah. So how do you market to get people to want to travel? Right. So I was talking with someone yesterday. You saw the Bahamas. I think you have to be fully vaccinated, right? If you're over 12, then you still have to take COVID tests free, in and out, basically. And the resort I was talking to is doing free COVID tests at the resort to help people get home, but you still got to figure out how to get there. Could more destinations, are they having conversations with the medical community, with the government about how can we better align these things to make it easier for a consumer, right? You have to take a test 4 or 5 days before, but that test takes 3 days to get. And then in this case, I was talking to someone in the Bahamas, you still had to get a travel visa. Like, it's a very hairy, tight process. And so how do you help on both ends kind of streamline that to make it easier so that guests feel more comfortable and they're more willing to travel?
So go ahead, Dean. Sorry.
One thing that I have seen hotels doing, wasn't my experience, but one thing I've seen hotels doing down in the Caribbean and in particular is offering I don't know if a guarantee is the right word to use, but basically offering a deal to where it said that you have to get down here, you got to take your COVID test. In the event that you could pass your COVID test and you've got to quarantine and everything, it's on us. And so we'll cover that. So they have to factor that into their expense. Effectively, it's a marketing expense is what it amounts to. Yeah. Right? You can call it insurance, you can call it marketing, you can call it whatever you want. But that's something you have to factor into the equation, that there's going to be one guy or girl, whatever, one person sooner or later that we have to foot the bill for on this. But you know what? That at least gives me a little bit of comfort that if I get stuck there, I'm not totally up a creek.
There's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot to it in lots of ways too, because think about the logistics of travel. You're planning for a 3-day cruise, Gilligan, and you get stuck for a 14-day stay, Skipper. How much laundry did you bring? Just asking. And what do you do with that? Just asking. Okay. And personal hygiene content stuff. Just asking. These are things, and that's why I'm literally. This was like a brainchild of mine yesterday as I'm going through the horror stories with Tim. I'm like, I'm going to put it together as SOPs because I think a lot of hotels haven't thought through this. They're like, hey, my market's open. I can sell rooms. And then this stuff happens. And yes, domestically, we don't have the same concerns as international travel yet. Europe is not open for Europe to come over here yet. But when it does, this is going to start hitting domestically for us as well. So I'm literally going to put together SOPs. I'm going to say, hey, look, for a small hotel, I'm selling this. Buy it. It does everything you need to do. It'll break it all down for you. Or a bigger hotel. Here's another one. The idea is that I think that it's not been thought through yet, and that it needs to be brought up, and marketing wise too, and to your point, Dean, from a marketing perspective, is to go over and say, how do I sell what I offer in conditions for these things to happen? Am I selling my own internal insurance at that point? Like, hey, this is what we're offering, and this is how we handle stuff. By the way, if you want to ensure that if this doesn't go well, that this is an option for you to buy into, that this is our negotiated relationship should this happen to you. That might be another thing that we start adding into a weird mix of stuff, saying, hey, look, this is something else that we might be able to offer. Tammie,
I was just going to say, I don't know if they're still doing it, but St. Martin did that from an island perspective. Didn't they last summer? Like, you had to buy into their government.
Oh, you had to be there for a month. I
didn't think you had to be there for a month. I thought it was you bought into their, it was basically COVID insurance. So that if for some reason you came down with COVID, like it was a pre-negotiated, you just had to buy in regardless.
I might
but it covered if you ended up getting sick.
I can't remember the name of certain islands, so I could easily be that was different. Because I know that there was some islands that said that if you were going to come stay with us, you had to stay for a month, which covered that need of if you were diagnosed, you would be there and still be able to be isolated and so on and so on. There was still that requirement of going to those places for that period of time. But yeah, I think this is a thing. I think this is because regardless of how this happens now, whether we are optimistic in thinking that what we're dealing with now with the Delta variant currently subsides in a month, so that the really strange, weird people that haven't got vaccinated do, and it subsides in some way, it isn't not going to be in our vernacular for at least a while. It's not going to be something that just doesn't become a thing. Strangely, and I feel bad for thinking of this, a month ago, I thought it was going to possibly be. I thought it was like, okay, maybe a year from now, we won't be having to worry about even carrying a mask on. Now I'm back with it putting around my damn neck again, and now I'm, before I would go inside anyway with one on. I think from a travel perspective, it becomes an integrated process of the decision making is what I think is going to happen. It's going to be a consideration of, okay, this, but what happens if? We don't do a lot of what ifs in our travel. We do a lot of I want tos, but we don't do a lot of what ifs. What if I, get sick? What if somebody hurts themselves? Do you check the medical facilities of your destination? I really only did that when I was internationally traveling. Like, hey, does my insurance cover for me if I'm in a different country? That's about as far as I really ever got in the worrisome of this. Now there's a whole mess of, can I fly back if I'm medically impaired? Can I be treated if I have medical necessity? It's strange how it has now become a point of discussion in travel plans, because I'm desperate to go over and see family in Europe, and they can't come over. We don't open the doors for them. So right now they can't come over. So we're like the people that you see in the news for the Canada things, where they're at the border for 6 hours when they first opened up to go see family they haven't seen in a year and a half. Those things are happening, and we're going to have that in reverse whenever we decide to open up the borders to the Canadian people, which is really odd since they're at 84% full vaccination. We're 50. It's like we're the one closing the doors. I'm surprised they opened theirs.
I seem to remember, and certainly I could be wrong on this, because I'm trying to remember back a year ago. But when I asked that same question about that Portland to Orlando example a year ago, and what happens to that person if they get there and they're testing positive, I seem to remember being told that there were what they would call COVID quarantine hotels. Mm-hmm. So it was a hotel that was specifically set up to be your quarantine place. And that's kind of how they fill the rooms. Mm-hmm. So, it's a method of business. Have those same hotels since moved into general public occupancy since then? And if so, are they shifting back? I don't know the answers to these. I welcome any listeners to chime in on that.
I could tell you firsthand from the Vancouver hotel that we have, they were a quarantine hotel. We had to go through a stringent policy of protocols as to being able to monitor and track the door usages, what the designated areas those people could walk out to have a break from their room at periodic times, the food delivery requirements, the sanitation requirements. There was a lot of stuff to it. They didn't shut the whole hotel down. They designated certain floors that were specifically it. And the key function to the elevator did not allow people to go to those floors that didn't have access to. There was lots of stuff to that. They never stopped being a hotel because we sold it for other things, but we had designated floors that were specifically for quarantine requirements because people coming from the airport, expats coming in had a requirement of quarantine regardless of their status of health.
So did they ever release those floors?
No. They're still using them because
in the same state they were?
Yeah, they're still in the same because there's still a demand for it for anybody that had to travel internationally for anything that they were allowed to travel for. Coming back was a mandated quarantine requirement time. The issue, and this is where the horror stories come into, is that those same said hotels to fulfill government requirements didn't have the real facilities to offer legitimate food service. And that goes to somebody else Tim was talking because Tim's a health buff. He looks like Superman with the leotards on. He doesn't eat pasta every day. Guess what they're giving him? Because they're designating what they're bringing up as food. I mean, you're a bit of a prison system. I mean, I'm not saying that bad. He's sitting in a beautiful room, looking out through the window, fogging it up at the beach. But they send what they can for food. They're trying to be accommodating and help. But what if you have dietary requirements and you can't eat certain things? Those may make clear ahead of your arrival. Can they be maintained in this circumstance? It's a lot of stuff that nobody's thinking all the little things to. They're not going down the little paths to figure out how do I do this? Because from a Adele perspective, you pull this stuff off. Oh, you're a rock star. You know what I mean? What the heck is Robert doing? Robert, you're on the road on a gravel road in the middle of North Texas. Did you really think you were going to get connected on the internet?
Robert Cole reporting live for the live show from the northwest corner of New Mexico.
Northwest corner of New Mexico. Is that close to Area 51?
Capulin, New Mexico. We are on the road live. Yeah, there's a horse over there if you can see in the field. Actually, here, we'll do a quick little.
We can't see. You got a green screen, dude.
You're in the Matrix.
Yeah, dude, you're make a chopper sound with your chest. This is Robert.
Looks like you're in the green light.
I don't know. I was going to say
T-Mobile as we speak.
T-Mobile was telling me that I had 100 megabits per second download, about 50 uploads. So
they're lying to you.
Yeah. Okay, just wanted to say hi. So you can't,
Robert, thank you. I love the pictures of the gravel road.
Can't see the scenery, huh?
I saw your picture posted. Yes, the gravel road driving. If you can find a dirt road, you're it, dude. You don't even stay on the interstates anymore. You're like they're gonna put big balloon tires on your car, and you're just gonna drive over the hills like a 4-wheeler.
We've been on interstates for 20 minutes. This whole trip.
I think you're going to be the doc out of Back to the Future. Roads, we don't need roads where we're going.
Exactly. So, okay.
Robert, stay safe.
Bye, Robert.
All right.
I would wave at him, but I don't think he can see.
I don't
us.
think he sees either. Be like, hey, Robert. Anyway, I don't. I'm not trying to put a negative to the conversation. I think it's just a reality of conversation that has to go in. And I just, as I was going through this with Tim, the reality of it is that this is kind of what we do. What I do is like, okay, that's a solution. It's like I can put together what needs to be thought through, so that at least they have a plan in place. That then there's a lot more to it, but just from the perspective of being helpful, I think it's there.
I love the idea. Oh, sorry. I love the idea of as a marketing tool offering that if that the worst happens, we're going to go ahead and take care of you. You know, that's our commitment to you. So you can feel free to take that chance. But that may make financial sense based on history and how it's been so far. But you never know when history is going to, you know, be history. And things will completely change because we'll have a different variant, and the outcome can be, you know, you can find your hotel completely overwhelmed. You just don't know. So I would definitely, if I own the hotel, I would put in something where either like whatever, St. Martin or whoever it is that did that you pay in for that. So at least there's something coming in that helps cover your cost. Or you say, we guarantee that you won't have to pay more than $75 a night or whatever it is, you know, something minimal that at least covers your costs.
Historically speaking, once those fees get added, they never come back off again. And case in point, you look at the fuel surcharges that all the airlines added on when our gas was running $4 and $5 a gallon. They all put those on. Gas went back down under $2 a gallon. Guess what? I'm still paying my fuel surcharge.
Where is your gas $2 a gallon? Mine's almost $5 right down the street.
Yeah, he had a sore spot with Nebraska.
It's $4.65 right now. Yeah,
we got those ethanol plants. We're good.
Yeah, I would say the gas here went up about 40% in the last year.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So
anyway, but I understand. I don't think that the fee is the same as that, because you're paying into something and you're getting a commitment otherwise. So if the need for a quarantine room goes away, then you don't. Then how can you charge a quarantine fee unless you still have that commitment?
Adele, I completely agree with you, but unfortunately I have to go on Dean's side because I had so many animated conversations with resorts that were charging for things that they said, like fuel fees. There was a COVID cleaning fee that they stopped doing stuff for, but they were still charging for that. I was, guys, if you're not doing this, because they actually pulled it out of my marketing program. It's like, we don't want to talk about this stuff anymore. We're past that now. We don't want to talk about all the things we're doing to keep the place extra clean. We want to talk about how happy they're going to be when they get here. And I'm like, guys, it just really should keep it a part of the process that you're still maintaining the quality idea. You know, the fact that you're concerned always about this. We don't have to feature it. We don't have to highlight it, but it shouldn't be just yanked out of your stuff. You know, they didn't want a picture with a mask on it. They didn't want anybody that showed that they were doing anything beyond what was normally considered normal cleaning, just because they want to get past it. They want to put that in the rearview mirror. Let's just do this for it. But when it came to the fee for it, oh, no, we're leaving that in. Seriously. Okay. You know, so I feel like sometimes I'm the champion of the moral whatever. It's just like, dude, seriously, that is about as hypocritical as that comes. Or if you're saying, we're not going to show you this, but we're still going to charge you for it, you know. But anyway, yeah, it's. I think you're absolutely right, Del. In good moral conscience, if you're not offering it or it's not necessary anymore, it shouldn't be charged for. But to Dean's point, the reality of it is they still will find a way to get free money.
Okay.
So maybe the commitment instead would be, we're not offering it free, but we promise it's not going to cost you more than this much. So at least you don't have to pay if a $200 a night hotel soars to $650 because of some, you know, peak.
You know, and also too, I think one thing we're beginning to learn about our polarizing society is that nobody likes being told to do something, even though if it's in their best interest.
Oh, that's true.
And so perhaps if
Vaccines, for example.
that we go through the explanation of value better, which is our marketing strategy of, hey, marketing is about communication. If we can communicate why we're saying you want to do this, just like flight insurance used to be a non-entity, unless you really were paranoid and or you were taking a risque trip, you really didn't think much about insurance. You didn't, when you were hopping between conferences back when we were doing all this stuff, jumping from Dallas to Atlanta, I wasn't really worried about the insurance aspect of this. It's like, oh, heck, I'll just reschedule the flight, or I'll go back to my carrier and just tell them to give me the credits. And it cost me $125 to rebook. Well, okay, whatever. Now it's like, oh, to the heck yeah. I mean, now if I get stuck in Atlanta for whatever the bad reasons are, I want to know that I can go through the process of getting back, So it's changing its perspective of value. And so if we do a good job of explaining, hey, look, if you decide now that this is a good coverage of conditions that you're worried about, here it is. We're not exploiting it. We're not we're not saying we're just going to take that for that. Maybe there's a refund value to it of some percentage if you didn't use it. I don't know. There's probably some creative way of doing what you're suggesting, Adele, that makes people feel comfortable that they're willing to do it if they're willing to understand the value of it if it gets used or doesn't get used, compared to, oh, I'm just going to run that risk. And then when we tell them that rack is rack, you're occupying a room that we already pre-sold, we got to pay for the walk. And I think that goes to another part, transparency. I don't think we do a good enough job of showing the consumer the impact of these things from a financial perspective. Wonder if we just showed, look, if you have to stay at our hotel for being quarantined, and we did have occupancy for that room, we have to now obligate our responsibility to those people to what we do with them. Like, we have to bring them to another hotel because they can't stay with us. We've already negatively impacted their vacation because where we're sending them may not be where they wanted to go, number one. Number two, we have to eat that cost. So we're sending them over, we're paying for stuff, on and on and on. This is why we have to do this. This is why you're getting charged what you're getting charged. It's a transparent conversation.
Let's think about another thing too. If you have, like your Vancouver property you mentioned, if you have served that role as the quarantine hotel, or you had floors that were quarantine floors or whatever, one day, knock on wood, when this is all in our rearview mirror, do you still have that stigma now of you were the quarantine hotel? Just like a plague hospital in the Middle Ages, whatever. Are you stigmatized, and how do you get past that reputation?
I think two things. We've had this discussion, first off, so I'm not talking out of hat. One is, fortunately and unfortunately, the public has a short memory. No, they just won't remember that stuff. Yep. Secondly, and something we have been adamant about in this process is our stringent cleaning requirements. We're showing that with this responsibility, this positive impact to our community of doing this so that we can provide this service, we are maintaining an even higher exceptional cleaning requirement. So we figure that when we do step away from the need to having to be that type of hotel, we're going to continue on with the story of maintaining standards, of those standards, of being focused on that. So we're not going to just hopefully people forget. We're actually going to say, we relearned something from this, that regardless of whether it's this COVID or this variant, there will always be the concern of the potential of the next. And for that reason, we're going to continue to do what we're doing. The air purification systems aren't going to go away. The cleaning sanitation requirements aren't going to go away. We may not have designated floors, but before we ever put them into general service again, there will be all of this that we're going to describe to make sure that people feel comfortable for the fact that our hotel is now one of those exceptionally clean. Even Vancouver's talking about changing their health cleanliness standards to reflect a new higher levels of tier cleaning going on, where they are going to acknowledge hotels and or businesses that are going beyond the, oh, there's no rats in your food. Good for you. We'll give you a C plus. They're going to go even higher to but past the A+ level and say, hey, look, these places are going through exemplary levels of cleaning. And I'm sure other municipalities might even begin to consider new scales for cleaning recognition for things like this. But for Vancouver, they're already thinking about things like that. They're pretty progressive. See, I like to say, I always thought that if I ever live in Canada, Vancouver would be a city I wouldn't mind living in. It's a beautiful city. This is me. Bias.
There are just a lot of hotels. I know we're always thinking about luxury hotels or boutique hotels or even select service hotels, but there are a lot of economy hotels that are just getting, dirty, disgusting, awful. I'd rather sleep on the floor of a bathroom at a gas station than be in this. And I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's a serious problem, and a lot of hotels in America fall into that category. And I feel like there should be that it shouldn't be possible to deliver hospitality on that level. That no matter how economical a hotel is, it should be somehow by law, especially now in these days, a minimum level of health standards. And I just don't feel like it could possibly be being met.
Now, how many times have you read? I know you read a lot of reviews. I read a lot of reviews, and people talk about this hotel should be torn down. Because
that's a bad start to any review. This place should be torn down.
Well, and usually if there's one review like that, there's probably several others that say the same thing. It's a trend. How many of those are out there where this hotel should be torn down, but it's not? Right. And to your point, at what level does it cross that threshold of, it really should be torn down? Because it's not a food and beverage outlet, right? So it doesn't have that standard to meet to. It's just a trashy, crappy hotel.
It's funny. Oh, by the way, I was going to ask you, Tammie, how things are going from your perspective of high techs and HSMAI and so forth, because AHOA just had their conference. And I know they got some social pushback on having the conference. But
it's funny because you mentioned that for the last time I was on the show, but I haven't really seen much in the way of social pushback from AHOA. So impossible. So I will, full self-disclosure here, I will put in a link to a virtual digital marketing conference that's coming up in next month called Engage. But I will tell you, self-promotion.
Milestone one.
But I will tell you, so I was at the Hotel Data Conference
last week. How was it?
And it was good. It was well done. It was well put together. I think STR did a great job. It was interesting, right? Because, admittedly, I'm a Californian. So take that to what you want to take it for.
$5 gas.
But I probably, if I hunted around in this room, I have like tons of masks by my door. So the conference was in Tennessee, which has it's like there is no pandemic in the eyes of many people I saw, but the hotel had no requirements, but the conference did. The conference said, if you're at the conference, you're indoors, you're masked. And I thought they did an excellent job of enforcing it in a way that wasn't guilt trippy, shamey, like you are a problem. It was just very natural. I definitely felt that there were less people there than in 2019, which was the last time I think they had that conference. That was to be expected. That's to be expected. That's kind of what Alice had that same. That same thing. There were less people than years past, according to everyone I spoke with. But overall, people are dying to get out in person, right? It's especially in this industry where we all like to get together and we haven't seen each other in a year and a half in person. And so I think you're going to see more of that. I know. So I'm also on the marketing advisory board for HSMAI's conference, which is coming up. And this year, if anyone doesn't know, they have the Marketing Strategy Conference on the Tuesday and Rock, the Revenue Optimization Conference on Wednesday. So it's 2 days of content back to back. And I know on the marketing strategy side, the attendance is trending up of where they were same time. I'll say same time last year, but realistically, 2020, when they had the conference, was a whole different, it was in January versus with the Adrians. But the numbers were pacing ahead of where we were in that same time period, this many weeks out from the conference. So now, that being said, I've heard a couple of different things. I've heard we're dying to get out in person, we're dying to meet, seeing lots of people. And then I have a couple other management groups I've talked to that are like, we're on travel mandates. We still can't travel. big companies, right? So, Google, right, I think still has the travel restriction in place.
Yeah.
So,
and also, too, they're still running on 2020 budget, 2021 planned budget for 2021. And yeah, it's not a 2022 budget yet where people may have begun to add monies into their travel budget. You're right. Good point.
Right. So I think it's going to be interesting, but I do think, at least from our industry and getting out, I mean, AHOA had a ton of people, at their conference. Like I said, the Hotel Data Conference I thought was well attended. I know it was less than 2019, but I expected that. Yeah. But I'm hearing that HSMA and Rock, I'm hearing the numbers are actually up. So
Good.
As a person myself who's going to be there that week, by the way, and would love to see everybody there. But I'm not without the knowledge that there's some risk involved, and I'm in the very hopeful category. I'm still planning to go, but I am watching, right? I'm watching to see what happens. There's a little bit of nervousness about that, no doubt.
Yeah. And that's a conversation we're having, right? And trying to, what's the contingency if things do happen to get worse, but hoping for the best, because realistically, we all want to get together. Now, I will say with the Hotel Data Conference, so it was a great hotel right downtown Nashville, right near Broadway. I walked down and okay, first of all, I am not the typical bar hopper. But I walked down to a little food hall to get dinner, and I looked up Broadway, and I will tell you, it looked like there was never a pandemic. Like no one, it was crazy how many people were just packed. Yeah. And I have to admit, I had a little okay, I'm going to head back to the hotel. I actually canceled a chiropractor appointment for that Saturday morning. It was Thursday night. And I texted her and said, I can't in good conscience. You have 2 little kids. Yeah. I need to be home for a week and make sure I'm okay before I come see you.
Yeah.
And that is the other impact. The events that are still taking place. And they're in the news. A lot have been in the news. Actually, Sturgis took place in South Dakota, of course, and everybody was concerned about that being a super spreader event, and understandably so. I'm not trying to weigh in that it was or wasn't, whatever. Just saying it was out there, whatever. But the event that I haven't heard anybody talk about that happened here in Nebraska, Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Garth Brooks had a concert. There were 96,000 people packed into the stadium.
Wow.
And I was just looking at that, I'm like, holy crap, how is nobody talking about this?
Well, because Garth Brooks, nobody was talking about Garth Brooks,
They did have requirements. Everybody had to be masked, and everybody did have to be vaccinated to attend the conference or the concert. So more power to them that they had the restrictions in place and everything. Yeah. But wow.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an incentive for people to get vaccinated.
Well, that's what I think they're trying to. I mean, I see in the Dallas news, because we always keep track of them having lived there. Maroon 5 was having a concert, and they decided, I think 5 days out prior to the conference, that they were now requiring that everybody be vaccinated and wear masks at the concert. And there was positive and negative. I mean, we're in that polarization world where people are like, I can't believe they're doing this. And other people are like, thank goodness, that's great. You get this polarization. I think there's some ripple effects of things that we won't see fully until time falls out. It's like, we know that brands have laxed their requirements on FF&E improvement and capitalization requirements to alleviate some of the financial stress associated with what's going on, which means that there's been kind of a ripple hiccup in the sense of what the progressive branding requirements are going to be pushing forward. We know the brands are struggling to re-identify themselves with their franchise relationships as to the value proposition and their support systems and all the things that they're trying to do for this. And I think there's a lot of moving pieces to our industry as to how and where this goes on. We see things like where Marriott's going into the vending machine business, basically, to offer food and beverage capabilities at their hotels. We see Hilton going over and doing the reduction in housekeeping below a certain brand requirement level to compensate for some things. We see people struggling with the reduction of the service and now a pay up for that service. And to Dean's point, does that turn into a residual perpetual cost simply because they can? And do you pay up for that, or you just allow the fact that the room is going to get harder trashed out? And now housekeeping has a heavier burden and extends the duration time to clean the room because it isn't being maintained on a regular basis. So a deeper cleaning will be required at every checkout because of that lack of perpetual housekeeping, because there is a maintenance level to daily housekeeping that is going to get interrupted. We have lots of changes in our industry that we're not going to really understand the impacts until we have a duration of time to say these things go on. I think, which is also the reason why I threw in the notes of this, there are good aspects. By the way, Tim, you got to let Craig know, when we start doing the scheduling for the show, he's got to grab a show, okay? And just be, the Craig hour, okay? And have him come in and just be the show and bring whoever he wants to and everything else. But you got to tell him to do this, because thank you very much for sharing his list of stuff on what he said, because him taking the initiative saying, hey, good news for this. I mean, I know Robert in his newsletter does the boop, which is always the 1 point of happiness and so forth. And I think what you resonated persistently is everybody wants this to happen. Everybody wants to do the travel. And not to be negative that people are getting mad at people that are preventing them from doing this by not helping everybody else by doing what is best for everyone with the vaccinations and the masking. Skipping that whole part of it, everybody has that desire. What's amazing to me is that people are so unwilling to go back to the way their lives were. They're looking at ways that they can do different with their lives, that we're missing school bus drivers. We're missing long haul truckers. We're missing workforce people at level positions that they want to do something different now. And it's amazing to me that everybody wants to do the travel, but how is everybody going to do this from an economics perspective? I mean, they obviously have spent less money in the past year and a half because they didn't have more options to spend it on. A lot of people took time in training to change careers. A lot of people are not wanting to go back in careers. But for everyone that has children, they don't have childcare. They can't afford childcare. It's amazing the moving pieces to all of this, because for people to travel, they got to have the means to travel. I mean, it costs to stay at a hotel and everything else. And like we talked about with other conditions, if you get stuck and everything else, there's a whole shift in our society right now that is, I don't think really the cards have fully been dealt on as to how all this is going to work itself through over there. We're still dealing with the crisis after crisis after crisis, and we haven't got into what has all these changes done in the long term. But from a positive perspective, I think core to what Craig and you shared with Craig is everyone still wants to do this stuff. Everyone still wants to go someplace. Everyone still wants to see people and do the travel thing. It's just, how does that look in the upcoming year? It's going to be an interesting play, I guess, as to all the variations to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Adele. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think also that there is a trend of a lot of people buying homes. People are buying homes in places where, like me, they going to have a lot more space, going to have a lot more resort style amenities. I can look at the place that's going to be built for me, and I can say that I won't need to go to a resort as that soon, because I'm going to have those things in my community. And I don't consider myself unique. This place is full, it's just swimming with people who have come from urban locations to have this, and they're spending more money on the homes, and the homes are really hard to find, so they have to have them built, and it's really a complicated procedure. But you can see that the home buying is definitely in. People are giving themselves a place where they're going to love, and I don't know that I'm going to need to feel that need to travel as much. I'll tell you when I get there. Mm-hmm. And I was traveling a lot, of course, for business, and I don't know whether my future will have as much of that. I just don't think I'm an exception. I think that there are a lot of people like in that situation.
Our ghosting stalker, Melissa, who didn't join us on camera, Melissa, said, do we think this is going to become more, and how will hospitality handle the staffing needs? Yeah. I think she's asking about the New York City vaccination requirements.
Yeah.
And I'm being biased when I say that vaccinations are like basic. They're a necessity considering our society right now. But I enjoyed the interview of a restaurateur, a famous restaurant in New York. And they asked the guy, he says, would you prefer mask requirements, vaccination requirements at your restaurant, other than shutting. And before she even finished his sentence, he's like, masks and vaccination. I don't want to be shut back down again. I don't want to stop. The fact that people keep screwing this up by going back out and making it difficult for people to go do my business makes it impossible for me to plan, impossible for me to think that I'm going to continue running a business. If we just did this stuff, we could maintain a semblance of normalcy going forward. He was very adamant about it. He just he lit up with the, I don't want to shut back down is the key element to this. And I think that is a reflection of the New York City stuff, is that this is the choice to be made. If you can't fix stupid. Sorry. And if that's the case, then it requires a mandate. I know I don't like being told. I mean, my case in point is driving a motorcycle. I didn't want the law that said I had to wear a motorcycle. Sounds silly.
Wear a motorcycle.
Wear a motorcycle. Yeah, wear a helmet for a motorcycle. Thank you.
I wouldn't remember what you stood.
Yeah, wear a motorcycle. But the idea of it was I always wore a helmet because it's just common sense. Like, look, I don't want to. But I don't want to be told either. And it sounds really weird in retrospect, but we actually had to make a law to tell people to wear a helmet. It's the same reason why we have a little disclaimer on toothpaste or lighter fluid. Don't ingest. Really? Okay. I guess it happened enough. They had to put a little notification on it. Don't drink lighter fluid.
We have seatbelt laws. The ones I really love is when I watch these medication commercials on TV, some new medication that comes out, and we have to lead off and say, do not take this if you're allergic to it. What? You actually have to tell me that?
Actually, with European family, they love watching those commercials because they laugh their butt off because it's a very American thing. This is your happy lifestyle, but here's what can happen: you can lose a limb, lose an eye, go blind, go deaf, and die afterwards. It's like, hey, so you want me to take this, but I could. Yeah, they just laugh at these things. They think they're jokes. Because of these ads, we only have them really in the States. They don't in Europe. They don't have these things, and they have other stuff. But it's funny that. And so yes, I think we are still in the creative mindset as to what we can replace from a labor demand perspective in our industry. I don't think we're going to have robots rolling down the hallway trying to clean rooms. But I do think that we're going to find means of efficiencies that technology is going to try to help with, so we have less demand on the people that are working in our industry. And as much as this sounds very pessimistic of a conversation today, optimistically, I think we need to really highlight our industry for all the joy that it brings us, that we love doing about what we do when we worked in the hotels. The joy of pulling off a great banquet, of giving good service at a restaurant, of creating a great meal in a restaurant, of having a pleasant stay for a guest. They somehow are getting lost in the dialogue of I had to wait for, or this wasn't available, or I had to pay this much. I think we need to start somehow reminding everyone what makes this industry so awesome to be in and enjoying it. I mean, actually, I'm talking with some brands right now because of the TV channel. They want content on there. They see this as a positive recruiting model. They want to show all the fun that goes on working in a kitchen in a hotel, or working at a restaurant, a hotel, or working at a hotel in general. And they want this to think of it as a positive light on why they can recruit that way. They're literally looking at their TV channel right now to do that. They want content on there that shows the fun of working in this industry. And I'm sorry, I totally empathize with that. When we pulled off the Impossible Banquet, where we had the crashing trays in the back hall, where we had the food cooler with the hot box that went dead, the tragedies we had, but the guest saw nothing. The guest had a great experience. Yeah, and we're sitting off going, man, if you only knew what it took to do that. But then as a team, the camaraderie of that, pulling that off, making that magic happen. There's no greater joy in the world. I'm sorry. That is just a warm, even now, it's an amazing feeling when you give that level of hospitality. And we need to introduce that in our conversation. As marketers, I think we need to introduce it into our conversation as well. But we have to also realize there's a certain pragmatism to our current world circumstances that we have to be also communicating all the things so that we don't disappoint. There's nothing worse than throwing stuff in the rearview mirror so you don't have to look at it, and then its ugly head raises up with an instance that happens, and I think of Tim when I say this, and now there's the reality of, oh, paradise lost. Okay, now I'm stuck in a room, 2 rooms, with bills rolling in that I didn't anticipate for, with an uncertainty as to when I can even leave the island. If he doesn't pass the test again, there's another more days that get added to the back of that. and on
Actually,
and on.
to what degree
on.
do they allow them to have the 2 rooms? At what point do they say, no, you passed, you have to leave? Does he ever have to leave her behind?
You don't know. Nobody knows. And that's the thing. He's even talking, because it's a small little island, 15,000 people live there. He's talking to the president of the country, the island, and the minister of finance, or minister of health. You know, they're dealing with, they're directly the people that are in control of the decision processes. And they're kind of going through their way too. They just opened. This just happened. And best laid plans of mice and men, right? You know, so, and the hotel's caught between it. The hotel is operated not on the island in the sense of their senior management. The GM is not from the island. And to Adele, to your angle of this, you know, not once has the GM talked to Tim yet. The staff has been great. The staff has been supportive. They've been accommodating as best as they can, but they can only do what's being allowed by their management, and their management hasn't even talked to Tim. They hit him on his credit card for thousands of dollars. They didn't even tell him what they were hitting him for. He had to go, what the hell is all this? And then they explained what they were trying to do, and it's like, okay, the explanation is not bad, okay, how they figured out what they're going to charge and so forth. But the reality was, you did it before you said what you were going to do. That's a little backwards, you know. And then again, he's not faulting the process of that. He's just simply pointing out the fact that these things happen, you know. Sorry, my wife is between. Yeah, those kind of things. So it's one of these things where we have to deal with the process of all that, you know. And figure out before it actually happens. We have to make the precursors to all that. That's
Absolutely.
All. So then we start talking about things like this vaccination proof with the article that you shared, and which really the simplest version of that is to get vaccinated and have the proof, and problem solved, right? But then what happens when we start having counterfeit forms? Because I've got my vaccination card, and I looked at it, and I have no amazing skills on Photoshop or anything like that, but I could probably fake one of those.
Did you hear? Hold on. Did you hear about the couple in Hawaii that got arrested? Florida couple, right? Not to stereotype Florida, but I thought I heard Florida couple. Faked vaccination cards, and they got caught because they also faked vaccination cards for their 4 and 5-year-old.
Who can't get vaccinated?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Wow.
So, I think they were Italian,
aspect, but okay.
I thought they were from Italy. But yeah, you know, the thing is that somebody would spend so much money to get vaccination cards when you can get vaccinated for free. Mm-hmm. Explain it to me. Yeah. I do not understand.
But you know it's going to happen. Well, it did happen, right? Yeah.
And to be unfair about being fair, is it really the hotelier that has to do this? Do we have to turn into policemen as well? Yeah. You know, just like the restaurateurs. To Melissa's question, I mean, I am not proud of the fact that we have to do this, but I'm also sad by the fact that our restaurateurs have to make full front in front of the one-to-one conversation to the person that says, I can't let you in because you can't give me what I need to give you the service that I'm built the business for. You know, you can't show me what I'm being asked from the government. And as much as I believe that the government should want me to do this, you know, that this is a good thing for our society, it is a bad thing that a business has to refuse business, not because of what they do for business, but because of the mandates of being able to conduct that business. That I'm sorry, you don't have proof that I need, and you're not vaccinated, and so forth. It is a shame. You know, it's one of those things that, again, from a moral perspective, from hotels, we've always had to maintain good decorum anyway. We don't let our hotels turn into crack houses either, you know. You do call the police when that happens, you know. So there is an obligation of running a business that you have to maintain, you know, those things. But it's from a positive side, knowing how to mitigate the interest that people have and communicate with them what they need to make the decisions that they need to make to come be with you, I think is something that from a marketing perspective is a growing demand. I think we need to expand what we're doing. It's not just how well we can sell what we're obligated to present, but how well do we communicate what that means in the sense of service and all the considerations that a guest has to have in making that decision, I think is important. So we're at an hour.
We're at the hour, yeah.
Yeah, we are at an hour. Is there? I think we should leave it on the boop level, a happy level. And since Tammie, you brought all the happy things that I didn't bring in up,
You brought the happy.
She brought the happy.
I brought happy.
You brought the
Actually,
happy.
Craig brought happy. I just stole it.
Well, you know, here's the deal: you're all under the
that
same
pink
umbrella
chair
of the
that I kinda
Milestone
dig.
exclusive club program. I'm thinking, what is Craig's is your, Sukasa Mikasa thing. I think you just it's your thing. It's Milestone. The stamp of Milestone's on it, so it's yours.
Yeah, it's all Craig. And I will say, for those of you that don't know my colleague Craig, and I'll actually just post it in here one more time. I think I got everything there. Well, sort of. So that's his LinkedIn. Craig Carbonier, he has done a post now for 54 weeks on LinkedIn called The Optimistic Hotelier under that hashtag. And really what he's done, he took a little break when he was on paternity leave, but he curates the top 5 positive articles of the week. So he's always looking for optimistic, upbeat, uplifting information, which sometimes we really need, right? Because there's such a dearth of negative. Of the 5 he has on here for the week, what I thought was really interesting was the CoStar article about, group and corporate recovery and how they're starting to see a lift in these smaller meetings, because it's aligned with some of what I'm hearing too, is that, the big, huge corporate blowout where, Google buys a hotel and has a party for a day or two, right? Isn't necessarily happening, but these smaller corporate meetings are definitely picking up. And that to me gives me hope that we're going to continue to see growth in meetings, and kind of aligns with the question or the conversation we had around, the Hotel Data Conference and HSMAI and all of those things. So, but he's got 5 articles this week that I had shared with everyone on the call. And like I said, he's someone definitely worth following, or following that hashtag if you want to see those articles each week. He posts typically on Thursdays.
Craig's an awesome dude. Honestly, I've really come to enjoy everything he's been doing, and he's my third favorite person in Milestone. Well, maybe fourth, because I got to put both of them up there.
Banu. Yeah,
Banu.
Banu.
I'm just a fanboy of Banu. Banu and just Banu, and I've known Banu for a long time. And then Neil, and then you. It's close, second, third.
I'm fine. And Lauren didn't say it, but Lauren is speaking at our conference.
Oh yes,
so
I get the privilege of being
Lauren. Another reason to come attend. Yes,
I got to go find out what. I know some of it, but I got to chase it down now because it's getting close enough. I got to worry about it. So yes, there's that, and yes, it's going to be. I would have looked forward to it even if it wasn't virtual, but now that it's virtual, it makes it even easier to say that this is a certainty. Which I think is kind of a part of the whole the planning process for a lot of meetings is. If you do have that other backup virtual aspect of it, at least there's a certainty of attendance. Because if I can't physically make it as much as we would want to, and there's any considerations, because the part we don't discuss is the fact that there's some people that have medical considerations that, despite their best want, they can't. Yeah. And you're really, unfortunately, excluding that option right now, given the considerations of the variations and so forth, that they just can't take that risk. Even though they have the willingness and capacity to do so, they don't have the means to be healthy-wise to do that. So I think that virtual component is going to be pretty much a forward-thinking, constant thing that regardless of the willfulness of personal attendance, that there needs to be a virtual aspect to it as well. So, well, with that in mind, and an hour and take, we only have one more show like this. After this, it's going to be host and topic, because again, from emails of everybody wants to know, let me know what we're going to talk about, and who's going to be talking about it. And so we're going to be rolling into that come September, where that is the medium. And I'll be sending you all calendar outlines for people to be able to grab what show they want to do. And it's yours to cultivate. So with that in mind, running around, Adele, for those who want to know you, where they can find you?
Visit me at adelegutman.com and check out the Hospitality Reputation Marketing Podcast. Get great reviews.
Awesome. Ms. Tammie, always a pleasure. Where can they find the amazingly cool Milestone Internet?
Yep. Very easy, milestoneinternet.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You'll reach out. Happy to help in any way I can.
And you did send the link for, there it is.
I did I can put the conference link one more time, but I did the conference link and I also did Craig's LinkedIn and the hashtag to follow. So
good. Yeah, that was a great thing. Yeah. Cool. Dean, other than saving the world and you're not wearing the Superman cape, where can people find you?
Yeah.
That was visual. That was it.
Captain Underpants. Tra-la-la. So if you would, now that we've done that, and give me that.
Fuzzy puppies.
If you need to learn about MetaSearch, basecampmeta.com. We've also partnered with HSMEI for an on-demand educational series. If you need somebody to help you with the MetaSearch, metasearchmarketing.com. And also, I recently am the MetaSearch specialist at a digital agency called 8560 out of San Diego.
Hey, are you still offering that opportunity for small hotels to be able to do MetaSearch on Google?
We are. Yes.
Okay. People need to understand that, especially with the fact that but your learning series is awesome too. So please, if you're needing an understanding of MetaSearch, which seems to be a mystery for some people, 2 mysteries in the universe of hospitality: MetaSearch and rich media content aggregation, like Ice Portal and Leonardo. For some reason, people just never seem to grasp those 2 things. Like, what is MetaSearch and what is aggregation of rich media? They just was a mystery. HospitalityChannel.tv for the replay of this show and previous. We'll be rescheduling this recast for 11:30 a.m. Sydney time, 11:30 a.m. London time on Wednesdays. So for those time zones will be helpful. And we're going to be recasting this now early part of the week. I haven't figured out which day it is, but we'll go back on social again for this. But just to go back and see it, it'll be on HospitalityChannel.tv plus our TV channel, Hospitality Channel, which you can get on Roku, Google, Apple, and what did I miss? Amazon Prime. They're all on there. So thank you all so very much for the time. And we'll look forward to our next conversation next Friday.
Awesome. Have a great day, everyone.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.